What's up? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Holly and this is my booktube channel. I'm so glad you found my channel because today we are talking my June TBR, so all the books that I plan to read in the month of June. So grab yourself some coffee, some tea, a little snack, and let's jump right in. So for June, my TBR is very readathon driven because there are 2 readathons that I want to take part in, and I think there's like 3 books that I've chosen for each readathon. So that is 6 books already. So that's a pretty good amount to try to tackle in 1 month. So most of my TBR is because of these readathons. So I have some notes here on the readathon prompts. So if I'm looking down, that's what I'm looking at. So the first readathon is the Dip into Summer readathon, and that is happening June 9th through the 10th. So it's a pretty quick one. It's just like a 2-day readathon, nothing too strenuous, so you really should join. There are 3 simple prompts to follow. So the first one is to read a book with blue on the cover. The second one is to read a book set by the coast or on an island. And the third one is to read a book with like an underwater creature or pirates or mermaids, something along those lines. I'm pretty proud of the books that I've selected for these prompts because they kind of overlap a lot, which I love. Some of these books you may have heard me mention in my beach reads video, so I'm really glad that I can fit them in the month of June. The first prompt, to read a book with blue on the cover, I chose The Last House Guest by Megan Miranda. I talked about this, like I said, in my beach reads video, but I'm anxious to get to this one because I wasn't a huge fan of her latest release, The Only Survivors, so I really wanted to give her another chance because I know she's a great author. I think The Only Survivors just wasn't the book for me. I definitely wanted to try one of her others. It definitely fits the prompt of blue on the cover, but it's also set in Maine, so on the coast of Maine, so it actually fits one of the other prompts as well. I love that it's kind of a double dip situation there. So all I really know about this is that it kind of centers around the main character Avery, and there's like this past of hers where she had a best friend named Sadie, and Sadie turns up dead one summer, and the police eventually rule it a suicide, but apparently there's people in the town that aren't convinced about that, and for some reason they blame Avery for Sadie's death. I really don't know why you would blame a child for another child's death, but that's apparently what happens here. So basically the whole plot is that Avery's trying to clear her name and prove that she had nothing to do with Sadie's death in order to stop all of these horrible rumors and to figure out what really happened. It almost has a cozy mystery kind of vibe, but knowing the author, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a thriller as well, so I'm anxious to see what I think of this one. That is The Last House Guest by Megan Miranda. For prompt number 2, to read a book set on the coast or on an island, I chose Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins, another one that I mentioned in my beach reads video. This one is perfect because it is set on an island. Essentially what I know about this one is that there are 6 friends, I think they're like in their 20s. They go to this pretty remote island, I guess for some sort of adventure. But while they're there, I think one of them turns up dead and another one goes missing. And of course, they're on this remote island freaking out, trying to figure out what's happening here and why the island is so sinister. And the back doesn't really give a ton more detail than that, but it sounds like kind of like a locked room thriller, but maybe just I feel that way because they're on this like desolate island with very little contact with anybody else. So it makes you think that if they're really the only people on this island, what's going on? Is one of them responsible for what's happening to some of the members of their group? Or is there something else going on the island? Are there other people there? I really don't know. It just sounds like an amazing thriller, and I don't think I've read any of Rachel Hawkins' books, so I really wanted to pick one up. I think she just recently came out with The Villa, and I haven't read that one yet either, but I really want to try her out as an author because I've heard great things. So there you have it for prompt number 2, that is Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins. And next for prompt number 3, read a book with an underwater creature or a mermaid or pirates. I chose From Below by Darcy Coates. I have never read a Darcy Coates book, but I really, really want to. and I thought this one would fit the readathon great and give me a chance to check out Darcy Coates. I don't really know for sure if this one is going to have an underwater creature, just based on what I know from the back, but I'm kind of taking a gamble with this one because obviously it's called From Below, and there's like a little scuba diver here, so I'm thinking it has to do with something underwater. Essentially what the back says is that years and years ago, there was this ship called the SS Arcadia, and it vanished. Nobody knew what happened to it. And all of a sudden, this strange, like, garbled emergency message was broadcast. But even despite that, the ship couldn't be found, the crew couldn't be found. It just completely disappeared. This book takes place 60 years later after the disappearance of that ship. And what's crazy is 60 years later, the ship and the wreckage is finally found. It's found more than 300 miles away from where it was supposed to be. And it says that it's just like this silent graveyard deep inside the ocean. And your main character has a dive team that gets permission to go explore the wreckage. What they're supposed to do is just examine the wreckage, film everything, and try to figure out what in the world happened and how it vanished. However, the back says that something dark and hungry watches from below. That's what makes me think there is some sort of underwater creature below, because it says it's dark and hungry. And then it says, with limited oxygen and the ship slowly closing in around them, Cove, the main character, and her team have to fight their way free from the unspeakable horror now desperate to claim them. So that sounds terrifying. It sounds claustrophobic. It sounds scary, but I love anything that's like either in space or in the ocean, in these just vast areas of the universe that we are not fully knowledgeable of. There's so much of the ocean that is just a mystery to us as humans, and I love that. I think it's just creepy and awesome and cool all at the same time. So I'm anxious to see what this dark and hungry thing under the water is. Hopefully it's an underwater creature and I can check off this prompt. If not, it still sounds like a good book and it fits the blue on the cover. So if it doesn't fit prompt 3, maybe it'll fit prompt 1. So there you have it. That is From Below by Darcy Coates. Next up, in between readathons, I wanted to throw in a quick read that I got really recently. It's actually a recent release, and that is called Conjuring the Witch by Jessica Leonard. It's a pretty short book, and it just came out, I want to say at the beginning of this month. No, beginning of May. Beginning of May is when it came out. And I've heard really good things about it. It's obviously the horror genre, and it's a quick read, and hopefully it will kind of cleanse my palate before I launch into the second readathon. I won't read the whole back, but essentially it says, "There are witches in the woods. These are the words the Reverend of the Lilin Assembly of Our Lord repeats to his parishioners each week." So apparently your main characters are Steve and Nicole, and they think that he says this to them every week, and it's just kind of like a metaphor until Nicole takes a walk in the woods and comes back changed. So something came out of the woods with her, and the small town, simple life that they've always known is forever altered because they start discovering these dark secrets that are buried deep, and secrets about the people who are intent on keeping them. And obviously Steve starts fearing for his wife's sanity after she comes out of these woods, and he's got some sort of comfortable status within the church, and so he starts worrying about that, because can you imagine being married to someone who's like, I don't really know what happens to her. There's witches in the woods, so something dark and mysterious, and he's married to her and they're churchgoers. It probably doesn't mix well. So essentially it says that this is a dark, haunted story about what those in power are willing to do to stay in power, and the sins that we convince ourselves are forgivable. Sounds dark, mysterious. I love a good witch story. I'm anxious to get to this one. And I actually love where I bought it from. I bought it from Ghoulish Books, if you can see their little logo here. I don't know if that's focusing. but they are a small independent bookstore that just recently launched in San Antonio, Texas. If you haven't checked out their Instagram, go check it out. They have a lot of really great, unique horror selections that I don't see anywhere else. So they are absolutely worth checking out if you're a horror fan. And yeah, they just seem like great people. So there you have it. That is Conjuring the Witch by Jessica Leonard. The next readathon that is controlling my TBR this month is the Suns Out Books Out Readathon. I think this is the second year in a row they've held it, so I'm excited to participate in it. I can't remember if I participated in it last year. I don't think I did, but in any event, there are 3 prompts in this one as well. The first prompt is to read a book with water on the cover, and the second prompt is to read a beach read. So if you need ideas for that, I have a whole video on some recommended beach reads. And prompt number 3 is to read a book with like a nostalgic summer vibe. So for the first prompt, read a book with water on the cover, I picked Something in the Water by Catherine Steadman. You may have noticed in my Florida vlog that I started reading this, but I have not finished it. I did not get very far into it. I chose to just save it for June when I heard about this readathon, so I have not finished it yet. Essentially, the plot is very simple. You have a married couple that is newlywed and on their honeymoon, and they go to the island of Bora Bora. They're very successful. I think Erin runs her own business, and her new husband is like an investment banker or something like that. And I believe they're scuba diving one day, and all the back really says is that they find something in the water. They don't tell you what it is, don't give you any more information than that, and I haven't read far enough to know any more than that, but I think it's a perfect fit for the first prompt. There's not only the word water on the cover, but there's actual photos of water. So I'm excited to get to this one. Sounds like a really good thriller. And yeah, there you have it. That is Something in the Water by Catherine Steadman. Next up, the second prompt is to read a beach read. And for that, I chose Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. Those of you that have been here a minute know that I really try to dabble in romance, but it's not my main thing that I go for. I like books with a subplot of romance, but I typically don't like it to be the entire plot. So this is a little bit of a stretch for me, but it sounds really good because there is sort of this treasure hunting adventure theme to it as well. I mentioned this one in my Beach Reads video, but if you didn't see that one, just know that essentially the main character, the female lead role, I guess, she helps her dad with like these treasure hunting tour kind of things through the Utah canyons because her dad believes there's like treasure somewhere and she thinks it's all just, you know, a bunch of hokum really, but she goes along with it because it keeps the bills paid and they give people tours and take them on adventures through the canyons, things like that. And then your second main character is the male lead character, and he is going on this adventure through the Utah canyons with his friends, and he's sitting around the campfire when he looks up and sees the female lead role. So their names are Lily and Leo. So Leo sees Lily sitting across the campfire, and the book says that he calls her his greatest regret, and she calls him her first love. So this sounds like a second chance romance with a little bit of a treasure hunting adventure, because the back alludes to the fact that maybe these treasure hunting stories were not just fiction and something crazy happens and they go on this adventure. And I would imagine, since it's kind of a second chance romance, maybe they rekindle their love, something like that. I don't know. I haven't read it. I've heard good things about Christina Lauren, so hopefully I enjoyed this one. That is Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. And for the last and final prompt is a book that I have been dying to get to. I've just been waiting for the right moment, and I thought, what could be better than trying to fill a prompt for nostalgic summer vibes than My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. I've read several Grady Hendrix books. There isn't one that I have not loved or given 5 stars, so I'm so anxious to get to this one. It looks so good. I think Grady Hendrix said that a lot of his books are representative of different periods in his life. I believe his latest book, How to Sell a Haunted House, is set in like the present day, so it takes place in the modern world as we know it. And one of his earlier books, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Killing Vampires, takes place in like the 90s. So if you're a 90s kid and you remember what it was like in the 90s, it's so nostalgic in that way, and he hits the nail on the head. Some people hate that book because they think it's like demeaning to women, and I'm like, no, that's the point of the book. That's kind of the way the 90s were. Women were really still trying to break ground in gaining respect in like the professional world, in their homes, etc. And I'm going on this long explanation of his books, but the point is, one of them was set in present day, one in the 90s, and I believe this one is taking place in the 80s. He says that it's very representative of the childhood that he remembers. I think he must be several years older than me if he was a child in the 80s, because I was born in the early 90s, so I missed out on the 80s, but I do love 80s pop culture, 80s music, so I have a feeling that even though I wasn't alive in the 80s, I will still enjoy the nostalgic summertime vibes in this book. Apparently you're following Abby and Gretchen. They are high school sophomores. They've been best friends forever. And apparently there's like an evening where they go skinny dipping and something goes horribly wrong, and Gretchen starts to act really different. She's like moody, irritable, and all these bizarre incidents keep happening. Abby starts to think, all right, my best friend's acting really strange. I need to investigate this. She makes some really crazy discoveries, and I would imagine, based on the title of the book, maybe she starts to think that her friend is possessed. The back poses a single question: is their friendship powerful enough to beat the devil? So maybe there's an exorcism going on. I don't know, but I love the cover. It is an old VHS tape is what it's supposed to look like. If you remember VHS tapes, you probably love this cover. And it looks like it's summertime and there's rollerblading and canoeing here, and it just looks amazing. I've been wanting to get to it for so long, and this is the perfect time to read it. So there you have it. That is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Well, that is my June TBR. As y'all know, or if you're new here, you're gonna find out, I leave room for a little bit of mood reading. Sometimes I'll throw a book in there that I didn't mention just because that's what I'm in the mood for. So hopefully I get to all of these, because I've definitely been anticipating reading most of them. So it seems like a fun month. Lots of summer books, lots of thrillers, lots of books that I've really wanted to get to. I'm excited for June. If you are interested in those readathons, make sure to join. Like I said, there is the Dip into Summer readathon, which is June 9th through the 10th. And for the second year in a row, the Suns Out Books Out readathon happening June 23rd through 25th. So make sure to check out those readathons. I cannot remember all the hosts for each one. There's a ton of hosts, but I believe Olivia with Liv's Library is one of the hosts for both of them. So her Instagram should have the details for both. And I want to say Keisha from A Book Like You is one of the other hosts. And Elizabeth from Ponytails and Paperbacks. Oh, and I'd have to go back and see who all the hosts are, but you get the picture. Go check out any one of their channels or their Instagrams, and you should be able to find all the information. So, and I'll try to leave all that down below as well for reference. So let me know what you guys are reading in the month of June, if you're reading any of the books that I'm reading, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye, y'all.